Sedric Van Pran, Christian Mahogany, Donovan Jackson are some names that are at the top of the interior offensive line list for the 2024 NFL Draft. But who are some sleepers? We're going to tell you all of this next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You already know what time it is. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm the host of the Locked On Clemson podcast, as well as a national scout over with the Draft Network. And guys, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day, Monday through Friday, every single day, man, for being our everydayers in our family. But I can't talk about anything championship related without the man that has the ring, my guy, Mr. LSU, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man, and 2019 national champ with those LSU Bengal Fighting Tigers, man. But you know why we're here, right? Myself, Damian Parsons, your dynamic duo. We are here to bring you that championship level content surrounding the NFL draft every single day, man. Whether that's draft philosophy, whether that's draft prospects, whether that's roster management, whether that's depth chart, man. But DP, we're continuing this scouting notebook, man. And I think this is exciting for us, right? Because this is our introduction of the 2024 class as far as from our scouting perspective to our everydayers, right? To the Locked On family, man, and allow them to have these early conversations with us as we get ramped up and amped up for the college football season so that we're aware already who the ballers are, right? Like who are the ballers? And this was this early identification process is. But DP, like I said, we switched sides of the football, right? We did offensive tackles yesterday. Now we're doing interior offensive lineman, DP. And I'm going to be honest, so I'm looking at the slate, right? We have who is O-line 1. We have tier 2 interior offensive linemen and sleepers. And I'm going to be honest, DP, starting with the very first one, man. Who is interior offensive lineman number 1? Because I don't know. It's a toss-up, and there's a toss-up with like 10 names. So I want to ask you, from your opinion, DP, who is interior offensive lineman 1 for you?
Right now, man, it's a guy I thought was going to come out in the 2023 class, and that's Sedric Van Pran, center from Georgia. Keith, you know, those Bulldogs, they keep the train going with these draft prospects, man. You know, shout out to Kirby Smart. But this was a 4-star recruit who was the number 1 rated offensive center recruit when he came into college, and competitive with plays with a high motor. He has good strength in terms of the ability to latch and grip and torque and move guys off the ball, especially in the zone game. I think that's where, especially with his athleticism, the lateral agility to reach block and get that L step and cover ground, but also get up to the second level. But you also see him as a puller on screen plays, being able to, especially as a center. I remember I used to talk about this with Joe Tippmann. It's hard for centers to snap guys and get out as a lead blocker, whether it's toss sweeps, screen plays, whatever. It's not, you have to be a really good athlete to get the ball out, to snap the ball and then get down the line and get out in front of the ball, right? And Sedric Van Pran does a really good job of that as well. Climbing to the second level, can pick off linebackers and even safeties that are coming into being plus ones into the run game. And I also like the demeanor he plays with on duo blocks. A guy that understands how to tag team and then kind of, so you know what I'm saying, double team, push and move vertical or move that guy off the ball, then get up to that threatening second level defender, man. High IQ too, Keith. And that was something I really paid attention to, is just understanding how to identify blitzes and then guys who are threatening the A gaps, on either side of his shoulder. And he just does a good job of that. And he's really clean in pass protection for the most part as well. There are some things like I said, I think for him is because he's listed at, I think it was 6'4", like 310. So he's kind of a taller for a center, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's a good sized kid too. And so just, quick background information on him. He's from New Orleans, right? So obviously I'm extremely familiar with him, with me being from New Orleans. Then also recruiting process, right? Like he, came to LSU quite a few times. But very, very big kid, well-rounded though, right? Like he has big, strong hands. He has thicker lowers. He has a strong upper body. So just well put together guy. So when we're talking about as we go through this draft process, right? We're talking about checking the boxes. He's somebody that's going to continue to check the boxes. DP. He's a center, right? And we know we're gonna kind of have that bucket, and I agree, right? That Sedric Van Pran, he probably could have came out last year and and been a top 2-3 center in that class, or even the year before. I think this is his third year being draft eligible. I keep thinking he's coming out, and he's not. But real quick, DP, I want to get into this guard conversation because I'm gonna list off these couple names. You tell me like who's the dude, right? There's Cooper Bebe, there's Donovan Jackson, there's Layden Robinson, there's Christian Mahogany. Right? Who is the top guard? And I didn't realize, DP, that I don't have any guards in my region, right? I have Cooper Bebe, and then that's it. So when we were prepping for this show, I had quite the haul yesterday, right? So he was wondering what I was doing. I was grinding. I was on the film, right? I was watching the film. I had to get to it. I'm like, man, I don't have none of these guys in my region. So I want to ask you, DP, from your opinion of those top four-ish names, right? Early identification. Who is the top guy that you've watched? Because a couple of those guys are in your region.
Man, to me, off of 2022, I love Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. I really like his game. Okay. Strong, athletic, quick-footed mover. He's got light feet, nimbleness when it comes down to moving laterally. But also what I really like about him, Keith, is I always talk about just like coming out of the starting blocks and if you're running track, that drive phase. He stays with low shoulders, coils and rolls through his hips, make contacts, and then he runs his feet and gets up to an upright stance. And he starts moving guys off the ball, can work in the straight in the power game and man-to-man blocking, but also zone blocking and reach blocking. His quickness to be able to get out of the gate early and quickly and cut off backside rushers and reach block guys that are like a gap away from him. It was impressive to watch him. I think, and I do believe that he is strong, but I think he could get a little bit stronger as well. But Christian Mahogany is the one. He was hurt in 2022. Yeah, I think it was his 2021 game. His 2021 tape was where it was like, all right, like this is a dude. So it's like if he can return back to that form, I think that top guard spot is going to be between him and Donovan Jackson. I do like Cooper Bebe though. I'm not gonna lie, Cooper Bebe was cool. He was a good player, man. I think that his arms look really short to me on tape. Like so, it's like all right. And again, he's playing inside for a reason, but it's still yet we know that these defensive tackles aren't short arm guys anymore. Like as people like to think, there are longer arm interior defensive tackles. So I just kind of see he has a good anchor, but I think his power going forward was something that I kind of questioned a little bit on tape, where I didn't see him just being a pop impact blocker going forward. But I think he's a good player though.
Yeah, so I'm glad you listed off those names, right? Donovan Jackson, Christian Mahogany, because those were the two that kind of stood at the top for me a little bit. But one guy that I got into DP that I was like, I see something here. And that was Layden Robinson, the interior offensive lineman from Texas A&M. I thought he had similar quickness to Donovan Jackson. Donovan may have been a little bit more powerful at times, but when you're talking about being able to quickly get into, and stay latched to defenders, I think Layden Robinson had some of that to him. So I thought he was a very intriguing prospect, and I think he was a lot closer to Donovan Jackson than kind of, what the hype is right now. But I appreciate what Layden Robinson offers. But DP,
and he's like 30 pounds heavier too. So when you say he moved, because I didn't get eyes on him yet, but since you say he moves so well, he moves close to Donovan Jackson, that's impressive because he's listed at 330. Donovan Jackson 6'4", 300.
Yeah, and it's more so that first step, right? That initial quick, like I said, being able to get into defenders quickly. You can see some of that in flashes from Layden Robinson. So I just thought that he was a pretty solid football player, which adds depth right to this interior offensive line class. But DP, like you said, man, we're gonna keep this thing going into the tier 2 interior offensive lineman. And there's one guy that we mentioned in tier 1 that I got to bring him to tier 2. I want to have the conversation. You brought him up a little bit, but I got to bring him into tier 2 just because I'm not seeing it. I have some concerns. So coming up next, man, we're going to get into these guys and list out who's a tier 1 guy that I may possibly want to put in tier 2.
Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for the up-and-coming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us in this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. We're making the first overall pick in fantasy football drafts in 2023. 49ers RB Christian McCaffrey is a guaranteed fit. A healthy McCaffrey is guaranteed to see well more than 300 touches again in his first full season in San Francisco, and is a centerpiece of the 49ers offensive engine. McCaffrey checks all the boxes, including his talent, usage, high floor, and ceiling. Run with CMC as the guaranteed fit at number one for a smooth ride to another year of big numbers. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, tail lights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Keith, who are you moving from tier 1 discussion to tier 2 for the interior offensive lineman?
DP, you kind of already talked about it, but I'm in charge of transitions, right? On the podcast, I have to transition, so I have to look at the timer. You know what I'm saying? Like DP, you just kind of rule and you flow, right? But I have to manage the timer. So when you brought this guy name up, I said, this is not enough time for me to say what I need to say. The guy that I have to talk about, DP, is Kansas State Cooper Bebe. I watched him not only this past year, 2022, right? But I watched him in 2021. 2021, he played left tackle, and you talked about the appearance of short arms. Stubby is not the right word, right? That's not the right word. That's not the proper way to explain this, but everything appears to be short-limbed. And I don't know if he has a long torso, so even his legs are short, right? And he was serviceable at left tackle. But I said, if this guy plays guard, that's going to be the perfect spot for him, right? And then 2022 came, and he played guard. And then I still said, man, his arms look a little bit short, right? I still had some of the same concerns as far as just even, your range, right? I always talk about range with offensive linemen, especially tackles, but interior offensive linemen also, because when people are able to attack your shoulders or your edges, right now you're opening that gate and it's your ability to move. And you can look at him, right? He has really thick calf muscles, thick lower half. And I'm just wondering if that kind of hinders some movement, right? And so I don't know. I'm at the point of, is he a center? Right? Like that, I'm like, okay, like kicking him down more and more. So I'm not knocking him to say that I don't think he's a good football player. I believe this guy's AP All-American, has had, Big 12 All-American, I think, back-to-back years. So highly talented football player, plays with good tenacity. He's physical. I just wonder, because we always have this conversation. We had it with Peter Skoronski, right? And I think that Cooper Bebe is on another level when it comes to potential arm length concerns and just range as a player due to length, overall body length and how they could affect him.
No, 100%. And like I said, that was the first thing I really noticed. I was like, man, his arms look short. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm just like, I jotted it down.
It's the arms, it's the legs, you're trying to
it's tough.
Yeah, the body proportions are really confusing to kind of understand and to digest, right? And to be like, okay, that looks normal.
Said something about like just his movement, because he does have a strong muscular kind of lower half, right? With the calves and the thigh muscles. And you like his feet move. He has solid movement skills, but it does seem restricted where it's not like a fluid motion. It's more of like, I got to pick him up each time. And it's like, I noticed that and I'm like, all right, picking them up too many times. One of these punches land from a strong defensive tackle, and why one of your feet are off the ground. Now you like a big rig on one wheel, and they got control of your movement, right? But and I'll give him credit to that strong lower body. You see a strong anchor. You see a guy that if you do get hands in,
rush him, I believe I put it in my report. Yeah, if you bull rush him and have to play with power, like he's A-OK, right? Like, and that's why I do think like he will be a top 100 player, right? It's just that we're talking about the top of the interior offensive line position. And I just, and I always look at it, DP, when we're talking, here goes a little bit of philosophy, right? Like, what are your losing matchups? You know what I'm saying? Are you losing matchups to Hall of Fame players in the NFL only, or are they Pro Bowl players and Hall of Famers, or are they, like good players, Pro Bowlers and Hall of Famers, right? Like, like what tier do I expect you to win? And for Cooper Bebe, I just like obviously, and I'm setting the bar high, right? But if you're drafting a guy in the first round, you want that to be a Pro Bowl caliber player, right? Like he can win most of his matchups versus Pro Bowl guys. So that's the part that I have a little bit of concern, because I just don't know. And it's not even, like you said, it's not athletic limitations. It's just like body composition. It's so hard to explain, man. And I urge all our everydayers to go check them out. Just go watch them. And then you'll kind of see even more in depth what we're talking about when it comes to Cooper Bebe.
No, 100%. Keith, this guy that I wanted to bring up and ask you about, because he's in your region, if I'm not mistaken, is Andrew Rame, the center from Oklahoma, 6'4", 312. A guy we really, I think you might have done a Scott report on him, because we thought he was coming out in 2023, but he goes back with Brent Venables to Oklahoma. From what you've watched with him, what are your thoughts on him in terms of him being a tier? Is he truly a tier 2 type interior offensive lineman for this class?
I think he is. And I thought he was going to come out last year. And last year we're talking about your guy from Wisconsin, getting drafted when he went to the Jets at 47. And then we're talking about our guy from Minnesota that went to the Giants, right, in the 50s, I believe. Yeah, John Michael Schmitz in the 50s. So I view Andrew Rame, I viewed him last year as right under that, right? Like I thought he was more of a zone blocker, athletic, play with good temperament, high IQ type football player. So last year I had him in that late 3 to early 4 range. So you're talking about tier two, especially with the center position kind of being undervalued. I think he is there, right? I mean, I think he's proven at that position. So I really like him. In that slot. But DP, we can kind of keep this thing going as far as, just players to list off. I'm not sure if you got to them yet, but I want to ask you about Tate Ratledge, Georgia interior offensive lineman. I'm not sure if you got eyes on him. I watched him a little bit yesterday. Was able to see some things with him.
Yeah, I've watched him, not like a full deep dive just yet to do his report, but I've watched him when watching Van Pran and Mims and stuff. I've gotten eyes on him. I felt like he played with good power, ability to move guys off the ball. And
that's what he does.
He's on brand for Kirby Smart and Georgia Bulldogs football. That's just a brand player for them, man. Physical, dominant at the point of attack. You know what I mean? A guy that can work one-on-ones, but when you get him in the double team, he's already strong and physical on his own right. But when you got him working half man with another interior offensive line working the other half of that blocker, man, and they're just able to easily move guys off the ball. And I want to do the deep dive. I want to get a better feel for his footwork and pass protection to see if he has that lateral quickness and the ability to just kind of cover ground, right, and be able to mirror and match one-on-one. But like in the run game, I think he's outstanding in the run game.
Yeah, I believe if you're talking about just those power guards in the NFL, and that's obviously offenses, right? So that's your Cowboys, that's the Tennessee Titans, right? Like that's
Patriots.
Patriots, things like that. He's going to be graded much higher because I think power is his game. Like you said, he's on brand for what Georgia wants to be, and that's what it plays to. Right now, you're talking about the athleticism and potential pass pro issues. We'll see about that, but we've seen that you can take these type of players, and I don't want to put him totally in that bucket, right? But like a Zach Martin for the Dallas Cowboys, like a right guard, right? He's just a right guard, and he's just gonna move people out the way. And it's a matter of if you value that, right? Like if you're like, okay, I have a power offense, I want a traditional right guard, that's just gonna bully people and move people out the way. And he also has that physical temperament to him that I really appreciate.
I think he would fit well with the Colts as well,
That's
with the
another
run
team. That's
style
another really
that
good
they
team.
bring downhill,
The
vertical
Ravens.
movers. Oh, 100%. You know, the Ravens as well. I think that there's a couple teams that could be suitors for him. He comes out for the 2024 class, and I think that's the big thing. And at the same time, if you do even with guys like him, if you do have some of the athletic limitations, he's an interior offensive lineman, so you can kind of hide him if he's paired with a good center or a good tackle, right? He can kind of sit on the opposite. So if his right tackle, if he's playing right guard and his right tackle is really good, he knows, okay, I got help on the right side. So I can go ahead and cover on the inside, and then okay, I can push you and work you back towards the right. If it's the center is the all pro, right to his left, he knows I can kind of sit on my right side. Set if you want to jump inside, cool, because I'm just gonna run. I'm just gonna wash you down the line. You know what I mean? So I think that the instincts and awareness for him, which is actually pretty good for a player of his caliber, you know, and he'll have a whole nother year in 2023 to really showcase his ability. And they're going to run the rock regardless. Whoever's that quarterback for Georgia, they're going to run the ball. So I'm looking forward to keeping an eye on him this season, man, because I think he's one of those guys that could potentially rise, man, because, again, teams need to be able to run the football. And we saw that last year in the NFL. They start to run the ball more if you want to play too high, and you need offensive linemen that's going to be able to engulf and just take over inside the trenches. And, you know, that anywhere from that 0 to 5 yard range, get up to the second level and make some things happen for your running backs.
No, I agree. And then I think every name DP we talked here too, right? But every name that we listed off, I feel like it's starters. Like that's NFL starters that I'm pulling. I'm like, hey, in this scheme, you're playing, right? Like, and I feel confident enough for them to play as rookies based off of their 2022 film. But DP, let's keep this thing going, right? It's your favorite segment to kind of intro, to kind of get into, man. And that's the sleeper. So I know you're about to tell them, wake them up. So coming up next, man, DP is about to wake y'all up with these sleeper interior offensive linemen in this 2024 draft class.
The alarm is going off, and y'all know what time it is. It's time to wake up. These interior offensive linemen, the sleepers that you need to know about. And Keith, I'll kick it off, man. A guy that you know, he may not be a world beater, and that's what we're talking about with a lot of these sleepers, guys that are going to be good, that could be good football players in the next level that you just don't hear a lot about. Zach Zinter, the guard from interior offensive lineman from Michigan, man. I saw a guy that pulled well, had good athleticism in straight lines to pull and get out in front of the ball, lateral footwork, solid lateral footwork to mirror rushers and kind of play one-on-one. You know, adequate movement blocker in terms of getting up to the second level and trying to pick off linebackers and second level defenders. I think his pad level could be a little high at times. So you want to see if it's more of a what's the term I'm looking for, or the phrase, more so like just getting comfortable with his body, right? Muscle memory. That's it. Trying, more muscle memory when it comes down to it. Or is it because, all right, maybe I'm a little stiffer in the lower half where I can't bend the way that you would ideally want me to bend to have the best available pad level. So you just got to figure out, is that something more reps that, that he needs and seeing if get that body comfortable and the muscle memory, or again, if it's some stiffness to him. But like I said, I think he's a solid guy and a guy that we all know what Michigan is going to do. They're going to run the football, right? Just like Georgia. Is it Jim? It's Jim. It's Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. I keep getting them mixed up. But Jim Harbaugh is going to run the football, right? And I think the main thing for them is this offensive line being able to protect, J.J. McCarthy, who's going to be the second year is a full-time starter. He's going to start from day one. So I think Zach Zinter will have enough eyes on him, because if they knock off Ryan Day and Ohio State again, get themselves back into the playoffs, man, you have opportunity to get some high-level competition to continuously show up. And I think the last time we saw this offensive line, TCU had their way with them. You know what I'm saying? TCU had their way with them for the most part of that game. You couldn't be physical. You couldn't set the tone because TCU wouldn't let you. So you got to come back out this year, play from start to finish, play physical, play downhill, play aggressive.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm gonna rattle off. I got the two guys this morning, DP. One is, I'm trying to make sure because the names are very similar. One is Miles Frazier, give LSU guy, interior offensive line from LSU. He's a FIU or FAU transfer. So he came, made that jump from group of 5 to power 5. Second year at LSU was 2022. So I believe he's going into his third year. And, we talked about the Donovan Jacksons, right? We talked about the Layden Robinsons being athletic. Obviously a tier or two down, right? But I think he has that athleticism, right? And I watched him versus Bama. I watched him versus Georgia, right? So because I wanted to see him play against power, you know what I'm saying? Because if you see athletic guy, I want to see you play against power. And you know that Bama, they traditionally have these big, like 4-eye defensive ends, right? That's 300 pounds. Georgia, same exact way, right? And he held his own with power, but I also think that his calling card in the NFL, right, will be more of the athleticism, right? So you're talking about zone, talking about those movement teams, talking about, like the Vikings and teams like that, maybe the Jets, right? He's going to be able to play in that type of nature. So this was one guy I wanted to highlight. Then the other guy they wanted to highlight, I believe, is Clark Barrington. He was at BYU and he's a transfer to Baylor this year. And another one of those guys with power, right? Like we're going to have some concerns about movement skills, but if you're talking about a running team, a team that wants their offensive lineman to always be moving forward, he's one of your guys, right? And you can find him, potentially deeper in the draft. So those are the two guys, DP, and I liked it because it were contrasting styles, right? So even when I was giving them grades, I'm like, how do I grade this, right? How do I grade this out? Because there were two different players, right, with two different value skill sets. But that's when you get into the scheme, right? Does he fit what you do versus just drafting positional needs, right? You need to draft a player that fits what you do so you can get the very best out of them. So that was my two guys, man. Interior offensive lineman from LSU, Miles Frazier, and then interior offensive lineman, he's at Baylor now, Clark Barrington.
And I'll add one more name, Javonte Spraggins, interior offensive line from Tennessee. Powerhouse, man. I
wanted to watch him too. I didn't get to him, but I wanted to get into him.
He's strong, 6'3", 325, physical, stout build, man. Really just be able to have heavy hands. He's a strong puncher in terms of like just his hand usage. Once he gets his hands on guys, man, like he can stall out a rush, right? We'll talk about taking the air and the wind out of a pass rush or out of a rep. He can do that with his hands. And we know that Tennessee ran the ball well in 2022, but they also, they won the best passing offenses, right? And the offensive line had to help Hendon Hooker, who's the quarterback. Now it's Joe Milton. And I expect to see more diverse running schemes with Joe Milton back there, QB power, QB counters and stuff like that. And eyes are going to be on Milton from an NFL scouting perspective. So for Javonte Spraggins, I think he's set up in a situation with his physical skill set and his physical frame to really kind of open some eyes when scouts come to watch Joe Milton ball out. If Spraggins out there moving bodies and being a bouncer in the club and throwing cats out of the building, that's going to really resonate with a lot of the scouts. Now his name is going to start to rise come NFL draft season. So he's got the opportunity with Joe Milton at quarterback and this talented offense, Josh Heupel's offense, really kind of setting them guys up, with advantageous opportunities, getting them matched up one-on-one with guys and stuff like that to really showcase, hey, I can handle my assignments, right? Because a lot of times when you see 325, 330, the first thing that comes to mind is, all right, can he move? Can he move laterally? Yep. Is he quick enough? Things like that. And he gets off the ball quick to get engaged, right? He has a good burst off the line of scrimmage, but he's got to continue to work on the hand placement and the technique of his game. And I think if he can go ahead and finish that out, right? And then showcase, all right, I am quick-footed enough, fleet of foot to move well enough with guys one-on-one that you can leave me kind of on the island on the interior, right? I think that's where I didn't get a chance to do the full deep dive, but I know Tennessee played Georgia, and that's the one game I didn't get a chance to get to because I know that Jalen Carter had some moments in that game where he was dominant. Mm-hmm. And I want to see who was that against Spraggins? Was that against somebody else? So I finished watching watch him later on today, man. But definitely a sleeper that, like I said, you like big physical guys. He's one to know about.
Oh, DP, man, I'm definitely. I have to check him out too, right? You put me on Lad McConkey. I went and watched him, and I'm in on. I'm on the Lad
Let's
train, baby. I'm
go.
in on Lad McConkey.
Let's
I
go.
gotta send out a tweet. Go ahead and hype that up a little bit. But I'm in on Lad McConkey. But DP, man, not to take away from the interior offensive lineman, man. I think that was a really good show, informative show, right? And I would say this, man, and you're gonna continue your theme, right? The 2024 class is good. This is another good position group. There are a lot of starters, and like I said, they're always small school guys. We know somebody's gonna come out of North Dakota State, out anywhere, somebody out of Montana, right? Like there's Princeton guards, there's a Christian Haynes from UConn. So there are going to be a lot of players. I'm gonna say this: if we went through the interior offensive linemen, we went through the offensive tackles. If you're an NFL team that needs offensive line help, which 90% of them do, you should be able to fill a couple holes this draft. Yeah, there are a lot of guys that can play football, man. We listed 15 guys, and there's another 20 guys that I know can play football at a high level. So DP, man, that wraps up our today's show for the scouting notebook. With the interior offensive lineman. Coming up next, what position groups are we doing? Or where we're going
Edge,
to next?
baby. We're going to
Edge
edge
rush.
rush.
Let's do the edge rush. We switch to that defensive side of the football. Like we said, we know that's my favorite side of the football. So we get to get those edge rushers. We always know we need those sack production guys.
100%, man. It's a passing league, so we're going to tell you about those guys that can get after the passer. And is there somebody that kind of reminds me of Terrell Suggs in this class? We will talk about it on tomorrow. We'll talk about it. Nice little segue for tomorrow's show. But guys, thank y'all so much as always. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. Thank y'all again for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day, Monday through Friday, being our everydayers and our family. We already told you, edge rushers tomorrow. In terms of Twitter, you can find and follow Keith Sanchez at The Talent Code. Me, Damian Parsons, DP_NFL. Talk to us because we do talk back. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.